Good morning, and welcome to this training on developing your online professional presence. This training is part of a workshop series under a larger project partnership between the University of Hawaii Sea Grant College Program and the Hawaii State Energy Office. That larger project is aimed at building coastal community resilience through energy transitions and focusing on a potential future transition to ocean energy sources. As part of that project, we are also conducting professional development workshops with the Clean Energy Wayfinders who work for the Hawaii State Energy Office. This particular workshop fits into that overall bigger effort for helping to develop the Wayfinders and for anyone who is interested in transitioning into a future of work with conservation in mind. So Hawaii Sea Grant supports innovative program of research, education, and extension services directed to the improved understanding and stewardship of our coastal and marine resources of the state, region, and nation. As part of accomplishing that mission, there are 4 focus areas that Hawaii Sea Grant focuses on: healthy coastal ecosystems, sustainable fisheries and aquaculture, resilient communities and economies, and environmental literacy and workshop development. This workshop series hits on 3 of the 4 of those focus areas with the healthy coastal ecosystems, resilient communities, economies, and environmental literacy and workforce development. I would like to introduce Emily Young, who will be conducting, so that she can introduce herself and will be conducting this workshop. Emily?
Great. Thanks, Amy. Okay, so yeah, this workshop is about developing your online professional presence. And just as a quick overview of the training, there's going to be 3 components. First, we'll do some introductions to sort of learn about our motivations for crafting our online presence. Second, you'll be thinking about your current online presence, and that includes an activity of Googling yourself to find out how you look online right now. And the third part is diving into using LinkedIn as an online platform. We're going to go over the basics of a LinkedIn profile and the components you should be thinking about. And this workshop also builds in some time to craft your headline statement and also some time at the end to work on various aspects of your profile. So we start with some introductions, and you can go around within your team and do the basic introductions of your name, where you live, maybe what organization you work for, and this is relevant for later on and for understanding our context as to what our online presence might be. And as you are contemplating your online presence, you might want to ask and think about what your current online presence is and what online presence do you want to have. And you can think of this as a spectrum from personal to professional, or maybe from public to private. And of course, you might have different motivations for needing different types of online presences. And so any of these are fine. You just want to identify from the beginning, what your intentions are and what sort of online presence you're hoping for. Okay, so after your introductions, we can move into some content about why should we care about our online presence. And again, this can change or can vary depending on the reason that you're using, the organization you're working for, the point in career that you're in. But ultimately, people might want to find you. Imagine that you've met someone at a meeting or on the street, or someone's heard your name, and probably the first thing they're going to do to try to get in contact with you is Google you and to see, what information there is online about you. You might also want to craft your online presence to make sure that you establish and maintain a network. So maybe you meet folks and you want to stay in touch, or maybe you want to be able to meet new people. Your online presence is also a really important way to sort of establish your network. And finally, some of you might be in your career stage where you are thinking about job seeking or your next career steps. And in this situation, having your online presence is super important. Recruiters might find you, potential employers might find you, and you can also use sort of social online platforms to find jobs for yourself. So and that little activity here is just to reflect why you are using online presence. Maybe it's professional, maybe it's personal, maybe it's a blend of those things.
We'd like to encourage you, as you are viewing this recording, to pause the recording as we go along when Emily gives a prompt, and maybe take a few minutes with your team, or if you're on your own, just by yourself, to think through those items before resuming the playback of the recording. Thanks.
Thanks, Amy. Okay, so this first activity then is as simple as Googling yourself. Now there's a specific way to do this. You should log out of your Google account or open a new incognito window so that your browser history doesn't affect the results that you see, and start by typing in your name into the Google search bar and see what comes up. Now, for those of you with more common names, you might have to add a few extra keywords to actually find yourself. So for example, I end up typing Emily Young Ocean or Emily Young Hawaii, and that tends to start bringing up my content up on Google in the first few hits. This is also a fun experiment. You might want to play around with which keywords are you associated with and which keywords do not find you, and think about the sort of content that you're related to online. So as you're doing this, check out the first page of hits and just scan. Is there anything too personal perhaps that comes up? Is there anything surprising that comes up? Are you happy with the information and the way that you're being portrayed? You might want to ask yourself, are you easy to find? Are you particularly difficult to find? And maybe you want to be difficult to find, maybe you want to be easy to find. Again, you can define for yourself sort of what level of visibility that you feel you need for this stage of your career. Again, are you happy with the level of personal and professional content that's found? And think about what could you change? Which accounts could you maybe make private? Which could you make more public? What sort of content could you add to sort of portray yourself in the way that you would like to be portrayed right now? Okay. So now we can talk about how you might control your online presence. There's a number of ways, and again, it depends on what you found when you Googled yourself. One of the important things maybe is that you can request that Google removes any personal information if that comes up, like your address or your phone number, stuff that really probably shouldn't be on the internet. You can go to Google and request that content is taken down. Often what you'll find is that one of the top hits will be maybe from your organization. Maybe your organization has an About Me page and a little bio about you. And that's a good way to sort of show who you are and, connect you to the organization that you're working for. If your organization doesn't have this, perhaps you want to ask them if they could create an About Me page, because again, it lends some credibility and is an easy way to sort of identify who you are. You can dive into your social media accounts and play around with the privacy settings. Like maybe you want to have a public Instagram page, or maybe you want to keep that personal. So definitely check out which social media accounts pop up when you Google yourself and ask yourself what level of privacy you want on each of those. And this might be, a lot of people will tend to have separate personal and professional accounts to sort of get around this, so they can still use the platform for both purposes. Maybe you want to add more content. Maybe there's not much there right now, and a good way to do that is maybe start writing some blog articles for your organization or as an independent person. This is another way that you can start controlling the content and the keywords that you're associated with online. And again, think about your keywords, because think about the keywords that people would use to search for you and the keywords that you want to be searched and associated to. And one of the big ways to control your online presence is through a LinkedIn profile, and that's what the rest of this training is about. So what is LinkedIn? LinkedIn is basically an online professional network. It's a social media network, but more geared towards sort of the professional realm. It used to be very heavily used just in business fields, but what we're finding now is that it's actually being used in many other fields, including conservation, natural resource management, government agencies, and community outreach. So it's definitely a platform for most of the users of this training. You can use LinkedIn for in a number of ways. Most simply, it can serve as an online resume. So you've got somewhere online where your resume can sit with all your experience and your education and a general about, and it can just sit there and provide that information to anyone who's looking. You can use it as a networking platform. You can connect with various people on LinkedIn, sort of you add them as friends and add them to your network. And through that, it kind of opens up their network to you, and you can start to grow your network and learn about new people, get connected to new people, and also to organizations. LinkedIn can be used to share information about yourself or about your organization. You can write updates and articles and posts about the work that you're doing, about the work your organization is doing, about your current job seeking situation. There's plenty of information to be shared on this platform with your network and also beyond. So a big use of LinkedIn these days is for job seeking. Now, LinkedIn has a job board built in, so you can use it to find jobs. LinkedIn is also being used by recruiters to find you. So this is something to keep in mind when we're thinking about our profile. When you're thinking about recruiters finding you, are they finding, again, are you associated with the right keywords, and are you represented in the way and findable? There's a lot of content on LinkedIn in the form of articles and blogs. And also through your network, you can do a lot of career research. You could spend hours hopping through different organizations, learning about the different job titles, reading posts and articles by recruiters and by other HR professionals. You can use this as a platform to sort of research career opportunities for yourself. And similarly as well, there's a lot of sort of professional development related content on LinkedIn, again, through their blogs and articles, including how to create a resume, how to network, all of those things. You can use this as a resource for professional development content. Okay, so there's many ways you can use LinkedIn. And we'll take a minute here to do a reflection exercise to think about for yourself, how are you or how do you want to use LinkedIn that is relevant to your current situation? So maybe you're at that point of your career where you want to find a job, or you want to find, do some career research and figure out what jobs you might want to take. Maybe that's your purpose. Maybe you don't really want to interact with the platform regularly, but maybe you just want to be findable. Your goal is someone can Google your name and there you come up. So maybe that's your goal. And, while you're thinking about this, the question to ask yourself is, who do you think is searching for you online? Is it a community member that you met on the bus? Is it a recruiter that you want to be found by? Is it the top CEO of your organization that you want to be visible to them? So spend a few minutes reflecting first what you want to use this LinkedIn profile for and what your goals are. Okay, so let's sort of dive into some of the LinkedIn basics, and we'll just talk through sort of what components a LinkedIn profile has. And there's many actually sections you can add to your profile. I'm just going to go through sort of the major ones and those that maybe are most relevant for folks like you that are doing work in community engagement, like the Wayfinders program or Google INA. So we start off with, for example, a profile photo at the very top of your page, and there's also a cover photo that's like a banner photo that sort of sits behind your profile photo. And these are very important components of your profile. Then there's a headline section, which is 220 characters to make a very brief, concise description of who you are, what your job title is, just capture you in just a few sentences or even a sentence. Then we have an about section. So this is a little wordier. It's up to 2,000 characters. It can be more conversational. It's another section to sort of give you a more rounded picture of who you are, what you're doing now, and maybe what you're looking for. And then we move into some sections that are sort of more classically resume related. So your education can go here, and it can be linked to your university or your school's profile. And then we have some sections about your experience. So again, this is the jobs you worked from the certain dates and some information about this type of work you did there. One cool thing about LinkedIn is that you can add skills to your profile. It's sort of little tags of the skills, and these make you super searchable, super findable, and are a good way to sort of showcase all the variety of skills that you have. So I definitely encourage making the most of that skills feature. So these are the main ones, but there's also a few other sections that you can choose to add to your profile. And I'll just highlight some of them here and how you might want to use them. You can add a featured section, and in this area, you can add documents, you can add old presentations you made, you can add YouTube videos that you featured in, any sort of media or content that you want to feature that you feel is important and you want a platform to share that, you can do that in this featured section. If you have licenses and certifications, you can also add these. Perhaps you've got some really hard technical skills that you want to show off and add that to your profile. The project section is kind of like the featured section as well. If there are particular projects that you've worked on that you're really proud of, or you've got a nice end product, it could really help you if you wanted to share that with potential employers, for example. So it's your opportunity to share and show off projects that you've worked on. You can also record various courses that you've taken, sort of much like the licenses and certifications and your education experience. If there's extra courses you want to highlight, you can do that in a section. You can also add a whole section dedicated to volunteer experience. So you could put your volunteer experiences in your experience section, especially if they're core, you know, that you took up most of your time and it was a very core component of your career. But maybe you've got sort of additional volunteer experience that goes alongside all that stuff, and you just want to see it recognized. The volunteer experience section is a really good way to sort of show that part of your career. You can add your honors and awards and your languages if you have any. And finally, you can sort of indicate at the very end what causes that are important to you. And LinkedIn has a list of maybe it's between 15 and 20 causes that you can show folks that these causes are important to me. Okay, so those components that had the asterisks by them in that previous list, I'm going to dive into them in a little more detail so you can start thinking about how you can update and improve these. I'm just going with like the most important ones to begin with. So we'll start with the photos. So the profile photo in particular, I read that just by having a profile photo of you, it makes you 14 times more likely to be viewed by others. So having an image of your face up there really adds credibility, makes you look like it's a real active LinkedIn profile, and is super important. So again, you can choose how you want to portray yourself, what sort of image you want. The general advice is to sort of wear what you would be wearing to a job interview, come off as professional, make sure that it's a headshot, so make sure we can really see your face and your features, and make sure that the image looks like you. Of course, maybe you're not in an ultra professional field, and maybe it would be appropriate to have a more, you know, casual profile photo. This you can ask for yourself, the people that are searching for you, what would they feel most welcomed viewing. But make sure that it's a high resolution image, and make sure that it fits the space, 400 by 400 pixels. And yeah, just think carefully about how you want to be portraying yourself. So you also get the opportunity to choose a background or cover photo, and this is like the banner along the top. You can use this wisely. You can actually use this section to add a bit more context about you. Maybe it's an image of you in the field, maybe it's the image of the area that you live in. Maybe it's an image of your favorite animal, or something that gives that context when you're just glancing at a profile that many people will do, like, okay, you know, this is Emily, this is an ocean person because she's got a whale in her background, for example. So think about how you want to use that space. Again, it should be a high resolution image. I've put here the pixel dimensions to make sure it fits perfectly. And my advice here is to test this on multiple devices. So you can use LinkedIn on a browser. You can also use it on your phone. And make sure, check it out on both of these platforms, and make sure that the image is being cropped the way that you want it, and it's looking like you intended. But I definitely recommend spending some time thinking about your profile photo in particular. All right, so underneath your name at the very top of your profile, we have a headline section. And again, this is a very short section, and it's really important because every time that someone searches a term in LinkedIn and it comes up with a list of people, your headline is going to come up there. It's always going to be attached right underneath your profile picture. Your headline's always going to be associated to you. And so this is your chance as a brief way that folks can get an idea of who you are, what field are you working in, why are you on LinkedIn, what are you looking for. So it's 220 characters in total. But of course, when you're scrolling through, sometimes it's only the first 70 characters that actually get featured. So you want to front load all the most important stuff in those first few words, really. And again, because we don't have much room to play with, you want to be clear and concise, something quite punchy and that's easy to read. An option here, you might want to ask a friend, does this capture me? Because sometimes it's hard to, condense all of yourself into just 10 words. So speak with your friends and your colleagues and throw around some ideas and try to make a headline that you feel works for you. One of the if you want a template for how to structure your headline, a lot of folks use this formula here where they'll start with their job title, position title, then their organization, and then separated by maybe add some keywords or some key skills or an idea of the professional field. And then maybe a personal value statement or a statement that sort of states, where you're heading or what the sort of work is you're hoping to do or what you're hoping to achieve in your professional career. So I mocked up a sample headline here for the Clean Energy Wayfinders, Clean Energy Wayfinder, Hawaii State Energy Office, and sort of now a personal value and professional statement connecting Hawaii's communities to clean energy. So maybe that's a starting point for you. Have a play around, use this time here to write your headline. And just remember as well, your headline can change and you can always be updating it. So, write it, see how it works. Maybe later on you want to sort of adjust your profile and change it, that's okay. But we need to make sure we've got something in that field for now. So feel free to pause this recording and write and share your headlines. Okay, so we can move on to the About section next. So again, this is sort of the first sort of chunky section underneath all that header material. And your About section provides like a concise but a bit more detailed snapshot of yourself. It can be up to 2,600 characters, so that's about 370 words. But again, like those first few characters in the headline, there's the top 3 lines of your About section that are the most visible. So users have to click and intentionally, opt to read the rest beyond those top 3 lines. So you might want to make sure that those first 3 lines have all the important information or some kind of hook that make the reader want to continue and read more. So this section sort of in a more conversational way highlights your strengths and your skills and your achievements and your career direction, like where are you heading and what is your intentions. So this is your opportunity. You can write this sort of conversationally, tell a story, make it fun, make it readable. Sometimes breaking up long paragraphs into bullet points or just very short paragraphs is a very good way to make sure that it's readable and the reader can keep their attention on this section. And as you're writing this, you want to be thinking about the keywords again that you are adding to your profile, because it's always going to make you more searchable. So think about those keywords that are important to you, those fields that you want to be associated with. Maybe it's core skills that you want to be noticed by recruiters, for example. Make sure that they're in there as much as possible as you're writing your About section. All right, the next section we're going to touch on is the Experience section. And this section, if you don't want a LinkedIn profile, this section is most relevant. You're going to have to write this anyway for your resumes and your CVs. So, this material is exactly the same as what you would see on a resume. So, and it serves as your sort of online resume. So it would be formatted, you'd have your job title. And remember, you can be somewhat flexible about how you present your job title. I would avoid saying student or intern and, be creative and think about, the actual work that you've done and the roles that you did to give a less generic and sort of a slightly more specific and interesting job title. You can associate each of these experiences with your organization. And one tip here is you've got 2 options. You could type your organization in and hit enter, and then there you've got your title at this organization. Or you could type in the first few characters, and LinkedIn will generate a list, and to connect it, if your organization has a page already on LinkedIn, you can connect this experience to their page. And this is important now because if folks are exploring that organization, for instance, you're now connected to that page. They can see who the employees are or who's had jobs there. It sort of broadens your network and keeps you connected. And to those that are looking through your profile and want to know, I want to know more about that organization. Now they've got a direct link to learn more about that organization and the work that they're doing. So you'll have the opportunity to, once you've selected your title and your organization, to write a description of the work that you did there. So there's many ways you could do this. It could be a whole paragraph of text. What I suggest is maybe having a short sentence at the beginning, just an overview of, this is the sort of work I did. These are my responsibilities. And then breaking into bullet points. And one of the sort of recommended formats for resume bullet points these days is to follow this formula here, starting with an action verb, and then talking about the task, and then talking about the result. And so this is a very powerful way to concisely show, like, I managed this really great project, and the outcome was I engaged with this many people and I produced these things. It's a very powerful statement that recruiters are going to be interested in, to seeing what you produced and what your impact was. And it's a concise way for people to understand the sort of work that you do. So my challenge to you is to try to write all of your experiences from each of your positions in this format. And this, like I said, can also be copied straight over to your resume. So it's also a good way to format your resume experience. So this experience section also allows you to pick up to 5 skills that are associated with each of those experiences. And again, I encourage you to definitely pick those top 5 skills. Ultimately, it makes you more searchable and more findable, and shows off all of the skills that you developed connected to those specific experiences. A final piece of this section is LinkedIn gives you the opportunity to add media to this section. So here you could add some relevant images, or presentations, or documents, or publications, anything that you did at that specific experience, at that job role. You can add this to your profile, and this adds just an extra dimension of, showing off exactly what you did. You might want to consider showcasing your work that way. All right, so I wanted to take a minute to talk about the public visibility. So we've been crafting our profiles. You can see what it looks like to you when you're logged into LinkedIn. But what you want to know is, what do other people see when they see your profile, right? This is important, just to show which of these details, which of this information is actually being shown and which might be private to you. So if you go to this link, linkedin.com/public profile/settings, this will bring up this sort of toggle, this toggled box here, where you can control what is visible to the public or other LinkedIn members. And so you can choose all these sections. For example, your experiences. Do you want to show all that detail, or do you just want to show the titles and headlines? That's up to you, and you can choose that. One of the recommendations I have is to think about the articles and activity section. So the activity section means, say if you've interacted with someone's post, you've liked someone's post, or you've commented on it. Sometimes that will be featured up on your public profile. Now that could be good, but it also might not be what you want. If you're just liking a number of things, maybe that's not valuable information for you to have on your profile. So personally, I tend to turn that section off because I don't necessarily want it to be directing to other people and for focusing on other posts that are not my content. All right. I think when you speak to most people, the challenge of a LinkedIn profile is keeping it active. I hear so many people say, I've got a profile, but I haven't updated it in a while. I haven't looked at that in a while. And yeah, that's very real. And same with your CV and resume. It's tough to do. So let's talk about how you can use LinkedIn and when you might want to update it. So at a minimum, definitely update it every time you have a new position, so that folks have an up-to-date idea of where you're working and what you're doing. You might want to add your new projects on there, or if you have new publications, for instance, or other documents that you want to show off, try to remember to update these as they come up. You can use LinkedIn without updating it, just sort of, as a social network. You can join different groups, like different interests, or, place-based groups where folks are posting articles and are connecting with one another. You can interact with your network by messaging them, or, hopping between profiles and seeing what they're up to. And you can also grow your network by adding new connections to those of you that seem interesting and maybe relevant to your work. So that's another way that you can use LinkedIn. You can also take it one step further and use LinkedIn as a platform to publish your own content, your own articles or blog posts. Again, you have a space now where you can publish your thoughts and whatever is interesting to you. So you can use it that way. And you can also like other people's posts and articles, and you can share and forward other posts and articles also. So these are other ways that you can use LinkedIn. Another nice feature is that you can endorse the skills of those in your network. So that's sort of adding a little bit of credibility to maybe those that you've worked with. You say, yes, I do agree that Amy has project management experience, and it adds that little extra to her profile. And it might make someone else more likely to do the same for you and endorse your skills. So if you don't know what to do on LinkedIn, you can just run around endorsing the skills of your friends, and hopefully some good will come of that. Okay, so accompanying this training, I've created a checklist of all of those major profile sections on Google Drive. And so if making your own plan to keep it updated, you can go through this list and check off those. Under each of these sections, there's also resources and sort of a brief summary of the tips that I've talked about. So now you've got a platform a plan to keep it updated. I do recommend putting some time in your calendar to setting some time aside to finally go ahead and update these things and make reminders to yourself to keep on top of your profile, because ultimately, if you leave it until the month that you're job searching, you'll have so much more work to do later, and you'll have that task of remembering, well, what did I do in this job? You know, it is easier if you can keep on top of it. I know it's tough, but it will pay off in the end. So
and for those who are watching this on recording, we can also make that Google Drive checklist available on the Sea Grant webpage as well, where you found this video.
Okay, so this brings us to the work time component of this workshop. Here we recommend you dedicate 20 minutes, maybe you have longer, as some dedicated time to sit and work on your profiles. So this could include maybe creating your profile, more likely just updating your profile, and all the sort of segments that we've talked about today. Remember, sections you can work on include your About section, and you might want to start just by outlining those important messages you want to convey, and then working on fleshing it out and writing a more detailed About section. You might want to work on adding all your experiences and all your roles into the experience section. You might want to work on transforming the details into that action verb, task, and result formula that we spoke about earlier. You might want to use this opportunity to check on your public visibility of your page and go through those toggles and figure out how you want your profile to look to others. And you should also use this time to create, or at least think about and create your future plan of how you're going to use LinkedIn. You can add groups, you can follow organizations, you can make a plan to take a professional headshot photo for your profile photo. Again, I recommend making some calendar appointments in your own calendar to remind yourself to carve out some time to work on this. And you might also want to ask a friend or a colleague to review your profile just to get that extra perspective. So maybe you want to schedule a meeting with someone or request a meeting with someone today, so you've got a plan to move forward. So these are things you can do in the next 20 minutes or however long you have. Good luck. Okay, I hope that was a productive work time for you. I just want to say mahalo. Thank you for listening to this presentation. And I wish you all the best in your LinkedIn and online presence endeavors.
Yes, thank you all for joining us today. And this will remain up and available so that you can come back to it as you need to update your profiles in the future as well. Thank you for joining us.